Welcome to the Adversity Diaries. I'm your host, Carlos Jimenez, and in today's episode, we are stepping into the world of precision, artistry, and eyes with Camden. From mastering the perfect triple axel, navigating the pressure of international competition, Camden's journey in figure skating is one of both grace and grit. Whether it's a flawless performance under the spotlight or the unseen hours of training, Camden embodies the relentless pursuit of excellence. Join us as we explore the highs and lows of a life dedicated to the eyes. Camden, welcome. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to talk to you again. It's been, I think, a few months and years probably. But I'm really excited for you, for me, and for the people that are going to listen to this, that you're giving us the time and sharing your story. And hopefully I know we're going to learn a lot from you, but also how to overcome challenges and setbacks in life, which I know a lot of people are going through it right now. But thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carlos, for a great introduction. Really excited to be sharing with you and the viewers everything that kind of came along with my skating journey. A little bit of background. My name is Camden Pulkinen. I originally grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, and then moved to Colorado Springs when I was 16. For 7 years, and then decided after that I wanted to continue my education and earn my degree. So I moved to New York City and attended Columbia University, graduating last May. And now I'm just started my new role in corporate strategy at Capital One in New York City. So that's the newest thing, is juggling this new role. But through it all, continuing to skate and not giving up my skating career has been kind of the through line in my life so far. And it's been really nice to see how skating has fit in all these different chapters that I've had to this point. So, just excited to talk about them today.
Cool. I'm so excited too. But before we do that, I usually have this segment, and I love this part because it's just questions that you would never think about it, but you're like, it's really difficult to answer them. So I wonder how you're going to do with this. So these are would you rather questions, okay? Very simple. Sometimes could be a little bit a quick answer, but sometimes I want you to give me the best answer you can, all right?
Yep.
You ready? All right, let's do this. So first, would you rather land a perfect quad in every competition, but struggle with spins, or have a flawless spins with inconsistently land?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a interesting question and very tailored to skating. I gotta go with flawlessly landing quad every competition. Oh wait, actually, no, yeah, I'll go flawlessly landing quad every competition, because the point value is higher for the quad than it is for the spins. So I'd rather take the perfectly landed quad. But ideally, we would do both, right? But I'll take this one.
Nice. Is it so can you give us a little more like background on that pointing system, right? Like for people that doesn't know about the sport. So what is like quad? Is it quad triple? What is like the differences of all of that? Just simply quickly just
So like single, double, triple, quad, that denotes the revolutions in a jump. So for instance, you can do a quadruple Salchow jump where you rotate 4 times and then land on half an inch of a blade. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty precise. It's the big tricks you see people doing. And they essentially get you the most points in competitions. So they're the big point getters during competitions. So they're really important for getting a super high score.
Wow, that's cool. And I guess the quad jump is like the hardest one to master.
Yeah, it's the hardest to master, though we are seeing now that people are trying to push for quint jumps, so 5 rotations.
Wow.
Over the past 5 years, the sport has just pushed and developed so much that maybe 5 years ago it was only possible to do one quad, and now you're seeing people do every single quad, which is both impressive and scary.
So I mean, I'm really curious about this, even though I'm not I don't know the sport much. But then when you say you do a quint, is it like 5 revolutions in a jump? you know the sport very well. Like, how hard is that?
I think, well, quads themselves are already extremely difficult and require the most precision out of anything. So I just think it's a matter of not even about if you can land it, but can you land it and continue to be healthy afterwards? Can you do it over and over again and not have that strain and impact on your body that will leave your bones shattered? That's my question. I think with quads, there's a bigger room for different types of bodies to be able to do it. But I think with the quint, there might be a very specific body type that can execute the quint jump. And for me, that's very scary because I fear that people might try the quint where maybe they're not the perfect ideal technique or might not have the perfect ideal jump height or whatever it is, and then it results in injury. And that's just not a good thing at all.
Wow, that's impressive. I wonder, is it technology or just training that people are able to achieve that now? Like, what is it?
Genuinely, I'm not quite sure. I think it's a lot of it is training. A lot of it is this new mentality around skating is that, you can do anything. You really can keep pushing. We're not at our ceiling yet. Where some sports, you're kind of at the highest point already. And maybe the improvement year to year is going to be quite marginal. But in skating, truly, there is so much more that we can push the sport. And I don't know, we're already seeing a lot of injuries. So definitely there needs to be some sort of a maybe like I don't want to say regulation, but there needs to be some sort of focus on the athlete health and well-being and safety when trying to push the sport.
Yeah. And last follow up on that one. So, do you have a story of you like going for your triple and then practice it to get it quad? Like, how is that? Like, you have any specific incident where you're like, episode where you're like really scared or like you doubted you couldn't do it, or or it came natural to you?
Yeah, it definitely didn't come natural to me. I think learning all of my triples, so the 3 rotation jumps, that was very natural. Everything was very easy to learn, and it took me quite relatively small amount of time for me to kind of master them. So the triples were all easy. I think it was the quad that really took more time. And for me, that just required a lot of patience. And sometimes I'm not the most patient person. So I had to continue to go back to the triple and really improve the technique there, which in hindsight actually was a very good thing because it forced me to take a step back and not rush my process and kind of go back and correct some of the errors I may have made when learning the triples very easily. And I just remember falling so hard on the quad over and over every single day. And then after like 4 months of just consistent falling, I started to stand up, I started to land. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, like this really is a notion that good things take time. And sometimes your process may be longer than others. So that was very helpful for me to learn that. But even now, sometimes when I do quads, I get a little bit like I kind of psych myself out sometimes. So it's still a lesson I'm learning today where I just need to remain patient and know that some days it may be flawless, maybe so easy, no problem. But some days it may be a little bit of an uphill battle and I have to just make the most with what I have that specific day. So it's a lesson of learning time and time again, but it's one that I think carries me beyond skating and is truly important.
And in that process, when you're like practicing to do the quad, do you ever doubt like, I will never be able to do it? Like, you have any, or do you like, nah, I can do it, but it takes time?
Yeah, it's not really a matter of, oh, I can't do it. I think it's a matter of I know I can do it, but maybe today's not the day, and maybe my body's just really sore from jumping 200 times yesterday that I need to take it slow and not do the quad today, and let's execute it better when I'm at a better place and I reduce my risk of injury. So yeah, I don't think in these past few years it's ever been a question of can I do it? It's is this the right time for me to really push my body to do the extraordinary?
Hmm. Cool. That's amazing. Next question here. Would you rather skate to a piece of music you love, but is technically challenging, or something you dislike, but it suits your strength perfectly?
Ooh. Music I love, but technically challenging. I think that's very present in my career to this point. Every season, we get new music. So we skate to new programs. And I'm a very stubborn person and I really like skating to what I like skating to. So I tell my choreographers, this is what I really want to skate to. And let's like create a plan around it. And they're pretty helpful. So last year and the year before, I've kind of like taken my skating in some new directions, tried to really skate to new pieces of music. And I think last season, I never felt comfortable in one of my programs throughout the whole season, but I really love the music. And even now, when I have this new program I'm working on, it doesn't feel comfortable, but I love the music. And the reason why I like skating the things that I like but may not be natural to me is because I think the sport is a sport where you can push yourself in so many directions. Just like pushing yourself to do a quad jump, you can also push yourself to skate to music that just doesn't suit your style, or something that is very technically challenging. And that's how you grow not only as the athlete but the artist. And I really like thinking about my skating in the sense that, all right, what can I skate to that I haven't skated to yet? That's going to push me into like, yeah, I skated to tango that one time, or, oh, I skated to funk or 80s or pop or hip hop now. And that's kind of a cool thing. It's a cool thing to explore for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that for those that doesn't know, I mean, we did a little research, and one song that I looked at when I was looking at your music that you were dancing, that you're figure skating to, sorry. And one of them that caught my attention was Bésame Mucho by,
Yeah.
which is a famous, famous, obviously, his Spanish speaking song. What made you choose that one? Someone told you have to do this one.
I actually really like the group Il Divo, and I have a friend that knows them personally, so kind of like did a deep dive. I met them at one point, and just yeah, I really wanted to skate to something kind of tango-ish, but also something that's truly like from the soul, from the heart. And I felt like that song was it. And if you listen to that music, like it just builds up throughout the whole song. It feels like just like an ache that's like the whole song, and then at the end it like explodes. It's like passion, and that was really cool for me to skate to that. It took a little bit of time to get used to, but that I think that's probably one of my favorite pieces I've ever skated to. So I think that's another lesson is in trying new music that is very technically challenging and may not suit you perfectly. That's where you can still find that you might fall in love with it, and it might actually become your favorite piece of music. So that's kind of cool.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. I want you to rank these three songs from your historical search that we did. So first, and rank them to gold, silver, bronze, right? So let's start with we have here "Fix You" by Coldplay. Then we have the next one will be "Invierno Porteño," another Spanish song, Hispanic song. And the last one, which will rank "A Different Kind of Love." So those three, where would you rank them? Gold, silver, bronze.
One. I really like "Fix You." Coldplay's great, so that's got to be the champion right there. Has to be the champion.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go with "Invierno Porteño" for silver. Even though I never really skated that program as flawlessly as I should have, that's one of my regrets. I still just love the piece. So good. And then "A Different Kind of Love" for 3, I'm gonna go with.
Awesome. That's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm talking as a civilian, and I'm like, when I listen to a song, I'm like, old song, it brings you back to a moment in time. Does that happen to you? Like, you're like, oh, wow, this song, like, "Fix You" probably brings you back to like that time in 15, 16, where you were.
Yeah, it definitely, like, when I think of "Fix You," it brings me back to Japan in 2017. It was like my first trip to Japan. It was my first big medal. I got like a silver at this one huge event that was like the top 6 in the world. Like they compete there, so I was very happy to be there. Yeah, "Fix You" was one that I love, not just for the music, but that was like my first breakout season. It was my first season in juniors where like I started winning competitions internationally and went to like World Junior Championships. I just had such a great season. I won junior nationals with that program. So Fix You just like has a lot of memories in my heart. And whenever I listen to it, I'm always reminded of like the motions, the choreography. I think in another light, sometimes when I listen to music on that I have skated to in the past, it brings up the same emotions I was trying to portray. Like, I don't know. I think there's a few pieces that were about like heartbreak that now when I listen to, I'm like, yeah, like I remember what I was going through in that year, and I remember kind of what emotions I was trying to bring out on the ice. And yeah, when I hear them now, sometimes it does bring me back to those emotions.
Do you have any? So now that's another follow up question there, because I feel like sometimes it's hard to separate like personal life and your sports life, right? Like, do you feel like sometimes when you have everything is going well in your personal life, then everything might permeate into the sports world, and sometimes when you're having a rough time in your personal life, does it changes your outcome? Like, how does that work
Yeah,
like that for you?
so
Or
I think to answer your question and also not answer your question, I think it's a yes and no. I think skating is a great way to bring the emotions you're feeling outside of the rink onto the ice, and it's a really good outlet for me. Um, but I do think that I like having a little bit of separation between my personal life and skating. I think especially since I went to college and skated through college, I found that I really wanted to separate my two identities of school and skating, because I think if I blended them a little too much, it may just get muddled and not as I don't know, I might like be thinking about the math exam I have while I'm on the ice, or I might be stressed out about the competition I have in the classroom. So I really try to make a separation between my skating and school life. And I think you can separate them in your day to day, but sometimes when I was stressed out in school, I would use the ice time to really push myself and exercise and portray the emotions I'm feeling and try to just like have a creative outlook. So day to day, it's a separation, but I think in my head, sometimes I bring some of the emotions onto the ice, not really vice versa. I don't really bring the emotions on the ice to the classroom or to my corporate life now, but it is important to have that outlet. And what a great way that I have to express myself and exercise, which at the end of the day is super cathartic and relaxing and very healthy for me.
yeah, that's super cool. I mean, that's very insightful, because I feel like some people might identify a lot with what they're doing, right? Like their profession to their personal life. So it's like it feels like they're one, sometimes. All right, next question here. Would you rather win a national championship but miss the world championships, or place second at the nationals and compete at the worlds? I think that's a good
Nationals and
one.
worlds, I'm okay with that. At this point in my career, after doing 2 world championships, there's nothing like the world championships. Representing Team USA on like the actual biggest stage that you can is such an honor. So I think, although I would love to win nationals, I would rather compete at worlds again. Worlds are just like an experience unlike any other. It's so cool to watch the other disciplines. So ice dance, pair skating, and women's singles. It's a really cool opportunity to see them battle for, the title, and obviously see the men compete. I mean, it's great to be amongst some of the best men, and world championship events are genuinely like no other. So it'll be worlds every day, and I'll take that silver at nationals.
Yeah, cool. All right, next. Would you rather choreograph your own programs or work with a world-renowned choreographer with a completely different style from yours?
That's a pretty relevant question. I think so. I work with, I think, the best choreographers in the world. They've choreographed for, or at least in particular, she has choreographed for, like the past like 4 Olympic champions. So very, very, and like past like 6 world champions. So like very astounding choreographer, very good at what she does. And I think when I first started working with her, she was a very modern, kind of like hip hop funk, very unique style of choreography that I think didn't really suit me. But what I really appreciate in a choreographer is when they can kind of adapt the style to you and really think about, okay, what works best on the skater rather than what works best on me. And that's something she does so well. So, yeah, I think I like a little bit of direction, and she definitely provides me this really important direction. So I'm going to go with world renowned choreographer because I already do that. And if you watch me choreograph my own piece, it might not be the best, to be honest.
No, but I wonder if like I mean, I'm not. This is my ignorance in the sport. But if you like, I feel like we can do something like this. You know what I mean? But then they're like, okay, is that how it works when you're like
Yeah.
developing? You know what I mean? Like you don't have to give the whole thing, but you're like, in this point at this beat, I want to do this move. Like, what do you think? And then they're like, okay, let's work.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes with my processes. I know with some other skaters, they kind of like to just listen and do everything the choreographer says. But for me, I like to kind of express myself through the new music. So I always try to do things. I was like, oh, what if we do this? So it's honestly a collaboration, which is great. I think it's a collaboration that is led by the choreographer. So I think they get the final say always because they're the masters. They know exactly what should work and what may work with the timing. But it is really nice when you're given the room to try yourself and try to put something on music, on beat, and then, okay, maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe we box the idea and do it another way, but at least you were given the space to try. Or the opposite is sometimes like, oh, you know what? I really like that arm movement, but let's change what the lower body's doing. So then they add a little bit of flair to my movements, or maybe I add a little bit of detail. So there is room. It's not like we're just programmed to do this movement, this movement, this movement. There is room in my skating, at least, to incorporate my own opinion and kind of get to explore and express myself.
Cool. All right. Last question here. Would you rather compete in a high pressure event without a coach present or have your coach but no audience to cheer you on?
Oh, high pressure event, no coach. Yeah, I think it.
Nothing against your coaches, right? Nothing against them.
My coaches. I think just in my time, these last few years, I did find that I became more independent. Going to college and also, starting my corporate job and continuing to skate. It definitely forces me to push myself more on the ice and not rely on someone else to do it. So I think at this point, I'm pretty competent and capable to push myself, and I would be able to put myself out on the ice alone. Is it something I would want? Probably not. But if the situation required it, I would love to, or I would rather have the audience to draw from than just one individual person. So the audience is just so important. It's truly crucial to see the smiling faces in the audience and to see some eyes to connect with while you're performing. That's something that really fuels me.
Nice. So how do you even start in the sport? Like, how do you have someone that you were watching growing up, or it's something that friends, family put you in the sport? Like, because I feel like sometimes you have, okay, I saw my siblings or, my mom and dad did it. Like, how do you came into it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. My sister, she skated, and I started out in hockey, and then I started going to her competitions, and apparently my mom said that I told her, oh, that looks easy, I can do it. And now, like 20 years later, I still fall really hard on the ice, and it's not easy. So my sister was a huge inspiration for me skating. And yeah, none of my family did it. So it's such a unique sport to come into from Arizona.
Yeah. Is she your, I guess, did she make it as far as you?
No, she She didn't. She was very focused on her studies in high school, and I remember she would spend like every night up until 1 a.m. studying, and then would wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the rink. So she was definitely focused more on the education in her life, which was really great. But she did make nationals one year, and she competed at the national championships at some point. So she she was very accomplished for how much she was putting in, because she just didn't have a lot of time to put on the ice because she was always focusing on her studies. So yeah, she was a very beautiful skater.
And do you feel like your family was your? I mean, who was your main support? Like, you had your family there, your mom, dad. Like, I've heard, skating is not very. It's not a cheap sports to get into, right? So how did that work out? Did they have to make any sacrifices for you? Time, commitment, money,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of sacrifices. Yeah, my family was a huge part of my support. I think also my first coach in Arizona was just, I wouldn't be here without my first coach. The things that she did for my sister and I to help us financially was just like, wow, it's amazing. I think I have a lot of respect for my first coach. I think she was she's just such a great person. And of course my family was, we weren't like, we weren't particularly poor, but we weren't super mega wealthy. We were somewhere in the middle class, and skating is just such a financially taxing sport that it was always hard, and there was always sacrifices to be made, whether it was, okay, like you can't I don't know, like you can't go to PT, you can't spend time with your friends. Like there's like little things that just like happen due to sport, whether it be the financial part or the time commitment. Skating just like absorbed a whole lot of my life and a lot of money from our family. So truly I'm grateful that my I'm not going to go into too much detail, but my family was able to make some sacrifices for me to continue skating. And those are sacrifices that I think are signs of very great parents that really love their kids. And I know that my parents love me and supported my endeavors since I was extremely young. So luckily now I'm in a much better place. But growing up, it was brutal. It was tough. And I think also like the sacrifice of regular school, having to move to another state at 16 and just leave all my friends from high school. Looking back now, it's not as impactful now, but at the time it hurt a lot. I think like seeing all my friends doing fun things and spending time with each other, and then I was just in Colorado training. It just felt like I kind of lost a lot of people from my youth.
Do you feel like during that transition, because you went to Colorado, you said,
Yeah,
right?
I would.
To train at, where were you training at the point in
What was
Colorado?
I training?
Yeah.
Like jump wise or?
No, where, like, what
Oh,
location
Colorado
in Colorado
Springs. Yeah.
specifically? Okay. Okay, so you were at the Olympic
Yeah.
Training Center there. Okay, and then how do you feel now that do you still go back and talk to your friends that you didn't talk to during that period of time, or you completely like
I
lost
think for
that
the most part,
chapter of your life?
it's pretty lost at this point. I mean,
Okay.
sometimes you talk here and there, but I think going into my next chapter of life after Colorado Springs, where I moved to New York City, I think that's where I truly felt like I kind of healed a part of my youth and made a lot of friends in college, and now I just have a lot of friends in New York City that I feel truly supported by those people here. And yeah, I think I needed that opportunity to move to New York City and see another life and make friends in college and kind of be somewhat of a quote unquote normal kid. That was really important for me. And I'm very grateful that I walked away from college with quite a handful of fantastic friends that I hope can stay with me for the greater part of the rest of my life.
Yeah. So what was life in Colorado Springs? Like, what was your routine?
Yeah,
Like,
it was
what day? Tell me a day. Tell me a day. Like, just like
typical day. It was a 9 to 5. It was a 9 to 5 of skating. Genuinely would wake up at somewhere around 8. Do my morning routine with food. and like a light stretch. Then I head over to the rink and I would skate a session, take a break, skate a session, take a break, skate a session. And then that would be all the way from, 9 o'clock down until 3 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. Then at 2:30, I'd be done skating and I'd head over to the training center and go work out, usually 3 to 4 or 3 to 4:15. And then I'd get PT afterwards from 4:15 to 5. And then the recovery room closes and the gym closes. So then we can't work out anymore. And then I go eat food at the dining hall. And then that's done at 6. And then by 6 p.m., you're just absolutely tired. You just want to lay in bed. So then I would just usually go to my room and sleep. So it was very monotonous. It was very much the same thing over and over. I think also skating is such a small community that there just wasn't a lot of people around. It's not like a huge sport where, like gymnastics, where there's just a lot of people in the sport in general. The skating population is very small and very tight knit. So yeah, that was the day of my life, and it truly felt isolating. I think it was good. I definitely progressed a lot, and I improved significantly. But from a social standpoint, and I think from a mental health standpoint, it was definitely isolating. So that was my day in the life in Colorado Springs.
Wow. So a 60-year-old just like every day, Monday through Friday, Saturday. I guess you get like one day off here and there. Reflecting back, as you just said, is that something that you had to go through and it helped you to be where you are right now, obviously? But then is it a better way to do this, you think?
Yeah, wow, really great question. I think for me, it's something I needed to go through. I think when I talk about independence here now and kind of knowing how to train myself and knowing how to be efficient, I wouldn't have learned those key skills if I didn't spend 6 years of my life doing it. I spent 6 years in Colorado, really 7 years in Colorado, really just doing that every single day, doing 65 days a year. And that's where I learned how to be efficient. I learned that there. I learned how to work hard. I learned what I needed to do to get successful. And although now I don't think I could go back to that life, maybe I could. Maybe prior to the next Olympics I will. But although it's not something I want to do long term, I think it's important for understanding how to train. I think to be successful in a sport, there has to be a period of time where you dedicate everything to it and you learn kind of how to train, how to work hard, how to do all the elements at a very basic level. And to answer your second question of, is there a better way? Yeah, I think there's always a better way. I think that it varies from person to person. For me, I needed to spend my 9 to 5 for those 7 years, just, grinding and working hard and going through this day in, day out. But I think now the way that skating fits in my life is it works alongside my other endeavors, and it really has prolonged my sport. So yeah, I think there's a better way, and I think there's different ways to do it, but it needs to be tailored for each person. Like right now, what I need right now is not what I needed 5 years ago. And what I needed 5 years ago was to just dedicate everything. For the young skaters out there that may be thinking about moving or thinking about dedicating everything, I think it's always worth it to give it a try. And then realizing that, okay, you always have the flexibility to leave a place. You can always leave a place, but you never have the flexibility to go back in time and change what you did in the past, if that makes sense. So I always err on the side of go for it, try it, see what it's like. And if it doesn't work out, you adapt and you change your direction. But if you don't go in the first place to see what it's like, then you'll never know what you're missing out on, and you never know what could have been. So, yeah, I know that was a lot, but I do think that there could be better ways for people. But for me, it was important.
Yeah. And I guess for people that might be listening to, they can relate to this if, they have a new job in a different part of the world and they're like, hey, should I do it or not? But I think it might be intimidating, right? Like the beginning, you don't know the unknowns. But I guess going through that, it may build character and discipline, the things that you might never have gotten from staying comfortable.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when I first moved to Colorado, like I did something that nobody in high school does. Like I just left my school and moved to another state, not because my family was moving, but because I wanted to be successful in the sport. I really loved skating. I wanted to see what it was like. And I sacrificed so much for that. I sacrificed being with my family from the ages 16 till 22. I sacrificed that, and I sacrificed my traditional education for skating. And I'm very grateful I did. I would go back and do it 10 times again. But I do think like there's always room to return. I knew that if it didn't work out for a year in Colorado Springs, I could always go back to Arizona. I could always be back with my family. So that was kind of my safety net. And I genuinely was just taking it year. I was like, okay, I'll try the first year. If I see some success, then maybe I'll continue. If I don't, then I'll reevaluate and maybe I'll go back home. So that was something that I always kept in mind is like, okay, and even now I'm in New York City. I live here and I know that like I love this city, but maybe in 10 years, once I want to start a family, I don't think I'll stay here, So everything is temporary. Yeah. And I think like life is always changing and there's always new opportunities that present itself. So when they present themselves, I always think I always go for them and just try it out.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're only 24 right now, but have you had any, doubts, moments in life where like, man, I don't know if this is for me? Like, have you had any moments where you're like really doubting about that, or you're always like, I can push, I can keep pushing myself?
I think actually, ironically enough, the most of my doubt was when I was in Colorado Springs. I think towards the end of my time training in Colorado Springs, I think I started to get doubtful in myself because I just felt like I was getting older. Well, I was getting older, and I just didn't have anything else in my life other than skating. So I put so much pressure on myself to skate well. I was not in a great place, I think, competition-wise, because I put all my eggs on myself competing. I was like, I have to do this. I have to skate clean and perfect no matter what, because that's what I dedicated my whole life to. And now when I take a step back and see, hey, like there's college out there, there's work out there, there's a life that's beyond skating. Now when I go out on the ice, I compete and I'm like, oh, like I'm truly putting this in my life because I love it. I could walk away from skating right now and just work my job and just live my life. But I choose to wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the rink and skate prior to work because that's something I want to do. And I think having the opportunity that I had to go to college here and now work, it's really forced me to appreciate my time on the ice and be appreciative for the ability to have this outlet within my 9 to 5, within my everyday. And that's something that not many people get to do. So yeah, I think I was very doubtful in my last few years in Colorado Springs, because I just felt like there was more to life than just skating. And now since coming out here, I see that there is more to life than skating, though I do love skating and it's something that's going to remain a part of me forever. I know that like, hey, even I remember when I was in college, I would compete. I'd be like, I still have an essay to write tonight. Can we like compete sooner? Like, I just want to go like compete. I'm excited to compete so I can go write my essay for college.
Yeah. You would have never thought of that in Colorado Springs, I guess. Absolutely. That was like,
no, even like I wouldn't have. And meeting people, I think in college and in New York City that just appreciate you for who you are, not just for the athlete that you are. It's a very refreshing experience. And it's one that I wouldn't have gotten if I just stayed in Colorado up until this point.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting because I feel like having that mental, resiliency, it's important, but also it takes a toll on you after a while, right? Like, so speaking of that, like, how do you have someone that you talk to, or do you have a mental coach or psychologist, or you know what I mean? Like, because I know at the Olympic Training Center you have, you know,
Yeah.
PT, AT, medical, nutrition, all these things. So, but what about the mental aspect? How do you work
Yeah,
that?
I've had someone since I was 17. He's actually part of the USOPC. So he's part of US ski and snowboard. He's a very good sports psychologist. He's been at competitions with me before, so that's always a cool thing when he's there. But yeah, I think the cool thing about I think my path with mental health, mental resiliency, and sports psychology in general is that um, I think my sports psychologist has done a really good job of training me how to think and training me to have the right processes that I go about when I do feel stressed. I mean, I've been working with him for 7 years now, so um, it's really nice that it's now ingrained in me that I know what to do when I compete. I know how to get myself in the right headspace. And like now I don't talk to him as much as I did in the past because I've gone through so many competitions with him, so many experiences that you start to see trends over time and you start to see, hey, like when I was a little bit high in energy, I did this. And then it resulted in me bringing my energy down and being a little more calm. And then I skated better. Interesting. So then you kind of retain all those like data points of competitions. And then you figure out, oh, this is what worked for me. This is what didn't. And that's something that's like you only get with experience over time. You only get that by competing so many times. So now I think I speak with my sports like more when I have bigger life events that I need to talk about, I need to figure out how it fits in. I think since moving to New York, it kind of like presented new challenges, such as limited ice time, or simply like my subway was late by an hour, so I just missed my practice. What do I do? And those are
Right.
things that I can always talk through with him. So yeah, I think sports psychologists are so important and very helpful, genuinely super helpful.
Do you do you have any, now that you're like in that mixed world, right? You do sports and now you professional civilian career as well. Is there any similarities on approaching a project or a meeting? You know what I mean? Like, is there anything that you can think
Oh
of?
gosh, yeah, a lot of things. I think first is like presenting. I think when you're an athlete, you kind of learn how to present yourself. You learn how to perform. And anytime I've done a school project or presented for work, I've felt very confident in it because I think as athletes, we know how to perform and we know how to show up. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing, and this is one that you might not expect from someone who's in a solo sport, but it's genuinely teamwork. I think, when I think about my skating, I have my coaches around me. I have my trainer. I have PT. I have my sports psych. I have all these different people, my support system that are a part of me when I'm skating every single time. It's never just me out there, but it's all those people that invested the time and effort into me. And I remind myself that. And now when I go into conversations at work, like working on a project, I think I've truly developed the teamwork skill because I know how to take all these different opinions, all these different ideas, and then map out a plan from it. And I think in skating, I have truly learned how to communicate effectively. I've learned how to convey what I'm trying to say. And I've learned how to respect other people. I've learned how to respect other opinions, other voices, other ideas, which I see play out in front of me every day at work. And I see, wow, yeah, I remember that time that I spoke with my coach about this issue I had. And I brought it up in a very respectful manner and showed them my point of view, and they agreed with me. And it's kind of a cool thing to see that play out now in my life outside of skating, because at the time I only thought it was just, hey, I have this problem and coach, I think this is right. Please like agree with me. But now I'm like, oh, actually what I did then is directly transferable into the real world, the quote unquote real world.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess this goes back to like people, when you put kids in sports or any sports, you know what I mean? Like this can be figure skating, soccer, whatever you want to call it. But then you're like, there's some social interactions, um, hierarchies, and people collaborating in the environment that can translate to the real world, like you said. You know what I mean? So, and things that you never thought about it, right? You're like, okay, I was doing this in my sport, but now I'm doing it naturally in my career, so my profession. So that's really cool for you to like make that connection. But I think it takes time to get to a point, right? Like, I don't know if you could have seen that maybe 5 years ago, right?
Probably not. I mean, no, again, it's experience in the sport. It's weird now that I'm an experienced person in figure skating. I look at like a lot of the competitions I compete in, and I'm like, wow, I've competed at so many competitions, and some of these people are new on the scene. So I'm definitely getting into the later part of my career, but the experience that I've built, whether it be how to train, how to communicate, how to work in a team, how to do a quad jump, all these things are now showing up in my life outside of skating. I know how to build a plan. I know how to work hard. And you only really get that with true experience, with a long time dedication to something. So I think, yeah, I'm very grateful I was put in the sport, because I wouldn't have gained those skills in just a regular classroom.
Cool. Was there any particular competition or performance that actually, really tested your resilience? You're like, and what do you learn from that experience?
Yeah. There's a few. I'm gonna go with my first World Championships in 2022. So I'll give you some background context. This was the World Championships right after the Olympics. So 2022, I was alternate for the Olympic Games. And then a few weeks after the Olympics is the World Championships, which is equally as important. It's just a super important event because it gets us spots for next year's World Championships. So if you place high enough, if your country places high enough, you earn 3 entry spots into the next World Championships. Whereas if you don't place high enough, you get 2 spots. So it's really important at the Worlds because that determines the country spots for next year's Worlds. And then subsequently, the Worlds prior to the Olympics determines the spots for the Olympics. So It's very important because you qualify your country. So
yeah,
2 Worlds, the Olympics. I was alternate for Worlds as well, and I was sitting there. I was like, okay, great. I'm not gonna go to Worlds because I'm an alternate, but I kept training just in case something happened, because that's my duty. That's my job as the alternate, is to keep training. So I kept training, and like 3 days prior to Worlds, Nathan Chen, Olympic champion, one of my great friends, he withdrew from Worlds. So
I mean, wait a second. So let's put a pause there, because I know that who he is. I think you have to put into perspective who's Nathan Chen.
Yeah.
Let's pick a like basketball. Where's he, like, who is he in basketball? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like it's like Michael Jordan. He's like Steph Curry. I mean, Michael Jordan's kind of,
there you go.
I think no one can compare to Michael Jordan, so I'm gonna go with Steph Curry. Nathan Chen, he's the 2022 Olympic champion. He's U.S. national champion 6 times, like something crazy. He's one of the best skaters to ever have skated, and he's a good friend of mine. And he was on the world team. I was the alternate. So a few days prior to World Championships, he had an injury, and he withdrew. So I found out 2 days prior to leaving. I get a call. It's like, hey, you're going to World Championships. I'm like, great, awesome. You didn't want to tell me earlier. That's okay. But I had to really be flexible mentally, because this was my first World Championships. It's a big event. It's really important because you earn spots for next year's World Championships for your country. So I went and I was like, great. The good thing is, I was so well trained because I did my job as an alternate. So someone who's not on the team, but is the next in line if something happens. I was trained so well for the Olympics in case something happened. I was so well trained for Worlds in case something happened. And something did happen. So I went to that World Championships. I ended up, placing 5th in the event, which is kind of crazy coming in as an alternate, placing fifth
Yeah.
amongst people who were medaling at the Olympics. It was crazy. And my free
Wow.
skate, so in skating, you have a short program and a free skate. You have 2 segments of the competition with 2 separate musics that you skate to. So my free skate earned me the bronze medal. So I earned a bronze medal free skate. So I got like a world medal there at my first Worlds. And it was crazy because, I mean, first off, earned 3 spots for the country. And second off, I think at that time, it was my last competition that I was doing in Colorado Springs. Like I was planning on leaving. And I think that's what really pushed me. I was like, wow, like I just placed 5th in the world. And I just beat a lot of Olympians and a lot of very high regarded and very well-trained athletes that are just, you know, experienced athletes. And then I thought to myself, wow, I can do this. Like I set like brand new records and everything, like personal best scores. It was very, very inspiring for myself. And it really showed me that, yeah, I can do this. And it showed me that even when I was alternate, it was important to do the job of training, because that's your job as the alternate. They're expecting you to like keep training. And although it's tough because you feel like you're training for nothing because you're not going to go compete most likely, it was really nice to know that that work had paid off. And then also know that I have the capability to score points that can get me, you know, a bronze medal at Worlds. And I think back to that from time to time, because the resiliency I had to have from finding out 2 days prior to leaving,
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah. You're like already making your luggage ready to go, and they're like, hey, by the way.
because they told me like 2 days prior, they're like, hey, like pack your bag just in case you need to leave on like a short notice, because this is going to be real tight. It was very tight. And then I went and I competed and I did well. And now competing at my second Worlds this last year, definitely a different experience. I didn't skate as well as I wanted to, but yeah, it was a different experience going in as someone who was named to the team prior and not coming as an alternate. Part of me wishes I was just like called up again to the team as an alternate, but no, it's interesting like setting that goal of my first Worlds. Like I really wanted to be 5th again this last year because that's what I was in my first Worlds, but alas, I think I wasn't I'm going on a tangent, but I wasn't well trained enough to get that same result. So yeah, that resiliency was definitely shown when I was called up 2 days prior to leaving for my first Worlds.
That's insane. I mean, no pressure. Like you call onto the spotlight in 2 days before that, replacing the Steve Curry of figure skating, and you perform.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's incredible. What about, obviously, I am a PT, right? Physical therapist. Sports medicine is what I've done in my life. But I'm really curious about injuries, are common, right? In sports. It's part of the sports. We see it. How have you dealt with setbacks like that? Physically, mentally? And do you have any specific story that you're like, man, I really have to rethink how I train, how I take care of my body, and all that?
I think, well, when we came back from COVID, I just really missed the ice. So we were off for, I think, 3-4 months, somewhere around there. And I really just missed skating. So I kind of went too aggressive. Like I was throwing quads on the first day back on the ice, which my body was just not used to. And I had a fracture in my foot because of it. So I ended up hurting myself pretty bad then. But I think what that lesson taught me was truly patience. I think as I've gotten older, I found that I need to warm up more. I need to sometimes spend 30 minutes on the ice not jumping yet and just warming up my body. Whereas when I was younger, like 18, I could just step on the ice, start doing some quads, start like doing triple axels, like no problem. My body would be like, yeah, this is good. It feels great. So yeah, I think I've learned now that I really need to be patient with my body, and that sometimes less is more. I think there's a lot of ways to train that don't involve simply doing more jumps or doing more quads and throwing your body against the ice really hard. There's a lot of better ways to train. Like if you're learning a new quad, maybe it's better to go back to the triple and really perfect that technique. So then when you do the quad, you're not just hurting yourself. rather than just going for the quad with maybe technique that isn't perfect and falling really hard over and over and over again. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I've learned that, for one, being patient, and for two, there's more than one way to train.
How was that process of, okay, you went to the doctor and say, hey, you're injured. How long did it take you? How was that? Was it like a period of no training and you have to be patient? Like, how was that process?
Yeah, so it was during the pandemic, so the training center was closed. They didn't let us in because we were in the pandemic, and that was pretty tough because I had to like find outside resources to fix my body. But I think in not having that consistent PT and consistent work, I actually, I think I wish the training center was open, because I think I didn't keep myself accountable very well about doing my work, my PT work, and also not pushing myself. I would get in the ice and things might feel a little better, and I would start tapping really hard and jumping a lot again. And that just made the injury worse. And not only that, but during the pandemic, we had to compete. So I had to compete at Skate America and at Nationals, and I didn't take those events off. So when I went to those events, I was competing with an injury. And in retrospect, it probably would have been better just to take a step back and say, you know what, I'm going to withdraw and I'm going to take care of my body. That's probably the better thing to do, rather than pushing through it and saying, yeah, I'm going to still compete and I need to like get these scores and I need to make a name for myself during the pandemic. It just wasn't a good call on my end, I think. And that prolonged my injury recovery for like, I don't know, I think it took like 9 months for me to feel actually better. Yeah.
Wow. Really? I mean, that's something that, I mean, obviously you're not the first athlete that has done that, right? Because I've, always speaking with other people as well. They're like, hey, I have this issue, but I think I can push through this. Do you know there's some things you can actually, okay, I think I can, you have obviously doing the sport for a while, you may have some aches and pain here and there, right? You're like, okay, this feels tight, let me move this. But there's some things that you can push, and you might, because you're always pushing the limit, right? You're like at the level of where it's pain, an injury, or it's like performance, right? Peaking, right? So you're like in that balance. So in this time, were you able to like, why did you make that decision? Thinking back now, like you're like, okay, I have to, because why did you make that decision at that point in time with the information?
It was funding. So I needed to compete to retain my funding from US Figure Skating. So that's the ultimate decision, is I needed the funding and I wanted to continue to receive funding. And if I didn't compete that year, I would have lost a lot of it. So that was the decision making behind it, which in retrospect, like, money is important, but my health was probably more important at the time. And granted, for an injury, I had pretty decent results, like, which was very surprising. But I skated like not too terrible even with the injury. But yeah, it was just not a good call. I skated for the funding, and that wasn't a good decision.
Wow. Yeah. So what is the thing that you like to do now that you're not even, what's your hobbies now, man? What's like?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the rink or work, I like walking through Central Park. I'm really into rock climbing, so I like going bouldering.
Yeah, have build the calluses in your hands and stuff. We have already
crazy.
Do you have at home? I've seen it. The thing you put it on the wall and you kind of like working the grip.
I mean, I know. That's when I know I have a problem, is if I start doing that at home. Well, that's not good. Yeah. So I like rock climbing a lot. I really enjoy biking. I want to get into pickleball. I think pickleball is getting pretty big. So there's a lot of great pickleball clubs around here in New York. So those are things I like doing. I also really just enjoy being outside, being in nature. I like finding new little cafes, new coffee shops around me. There's always a new one to go to here in the city. So yeah, I think those are my hobbies, and truly just enjoying good food. I like The New York food is great, although very expensive. Food here is amazing, so I like trying a new spot every week.
What's your favorite cuisine?
Ooh.
Like you always have to get, that you treat yourself.
Oh, New York. Yeah, New York is.
Pizza.
Yeah,
New York style.
that's when I treat myself. I think my favorite cuisine has to be
Okay.
Japanese food. Like I like sushi a lot. There's omakase here, which is very good.
Oh my God.
Very-
Expensive.
It's a once a year type of omakase.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome. Dude. Okay, I want to finish up with two questions here, okay, before we wrap it up. And then one of them is, what would you tell your younger self, knowing what you know now? I mean, you're still young, but
My younger self.
yes.
I'd say enjoy the moment. I think there are times I think back to my time in Colorado when I was younger, and I miss it sometimes. I definitely miss that, like, although it was a lot from a 9 to 5, I do miss that routine. I miss that routine of just go to the rink, skate, and just go home. Like now, that life seems really easy compared to what I have now. So I would tell my younger self to just enjoy the moment and, yeah, I'd say just really appreciate what you have, because to have the opportunity to move away at a young age for a sport is a very rare opportunity. So I would tell myself to be a little more appreciative and to just try to get the most out of every moment.
Yeah. And the last thing, how do you want people to, once you retire, how do you want people to remember you in the sports of figure skate?
Yeah, I think I would love people to remember me as a trailblazer, someone who did things that was different than everyone else. Not just on the ice, but also outside. I think I'm the only skater right now in the men's division with a college degree, which is interesting. Um,
Wow.
I'm also the only skater working and skating in the world, I think, something like that. Like, I'm definitely changing what it means to be an elite Olympic athlete and someone who's training for the Olympics, and trying my best to figure out what it means to have skating in another endeavor. So I really would want people to look to me and say, you know what, this guy did school in skating and I can too. Or this guy did a full-time job and skated, so maybe I can do a part-time job and skate. I just want people to open their mind up to the possibility of other things in life that are outside of skating. Because that 9 to 5 in Colorado Springs, although it'll result in amazing, accomplishments on the ice, your social life will be very stagnant. You won't know. And once you exit the sport at an older age, after spending so much time in Colorado Springs, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, there's so much out there that I just haven't seen. And I think that's a scary thought that oftentimes, male athletes exit the sport at a later age, and they're like, okay, I'm 28 now. I've only lived in Colorado Springs my whole life. I don't really know what New York City's like. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what industry I want to go into. So doing that earlier, allowing yourself to have the opportunity to do other things in your daily life, that'll help you for the eventual day that you retire. You'll know, oh, you know what? I took this interesting, political science class in college that I was doing part-time while training, and I really have an interest in political science. Maybe I'll go to law school. At least then you have another direction once you retire of where to go. And I really hope people can see that it's okay to have a 9 to 4 on the ice and spend your 4 to 7 taking a class or reading a book about financial literacy or just doing something that's interesting outside of the rink.
Cool. Well, and this has been really fun, Camden. Thank you so much for your time and all the tips and knowledge and wisdom. I know that you're always going to be successful in whatever you dedicate yourself because you have the mentality. And I'm really thankful for you being here with me, spending time for this hour. I'll never take this for granted. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlos. It's been a pleasure to chat with you and all the viewers. Carlos is a great guy. I've known him for a long time. So he's always got a good heart and a good soul. So everyone, I hope you can continue to watch his content or listen to his content, because this man is always a creative and always trying to put good out in the world. So really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.